Hello viewers, welcome to another episode with Excellence Tuition Center. Today we are going to continue revising Chemistry Paper 1 for the May-June 2016 session. We are going to do number 21 up to 40. Question 21, it reads, in which reaction are two of the products salts? A. Aqueous lead 2 nitrate and aqueous copper 2 sulfate. B. Aqueous sodium hydroxide and solid ammonium sulfate. C. Dilute hydrochloric acid and aqueous sodium carbonate. D. Dilute hydrochloric acid and magnesium. So I'm just going to give directions for all the options and we see which ones produce salts. So for option A, lead nitrate reacts with copper sulfate to produce lead sulfate, which is a white precipitate. So this is a white precipitate, and calcium nitrate. Ammonium sulfate for option B, it reacts with sodium hydroxide, produce sodium sulfate plus ammonia plus water. For part C, for option C, sodium carbonate reacts with hydrochloric acid to form sodium chloride plus water plus carbon dioxide. Option D, magnesium reacts with hydrochloric acid to form magnesium chloride and hydrogen. So the correct answer is A. So A, that is where the two of the products are both salts, which is lead sulfate and calcium nitrate. Question 22, it reads, the diagram shows the structure of brass. So this is the structure of brass, where we have zinc atom and copper atom. Why is brass harder than pure copper? A, the zinc atom forms strong covalent bonds with copper atoms. B, the zinc atoms prevent layers of copper atoms from sliding over each other easily. C, the zinc atoms prevent the sea of electrons from moving freely in the solid. D, the zinc atoms have more electrons than the copper atoms. So the correct answer is B. So the zinc atoms prevent layers of copper atoms from sliding over each other easily. This is because the zinc atoms are larger than the copper atoms. So the difference in sizes result in a difficulty of the layers to slide past each other easily. Question 23, it reads, from their position in the periodic table, which statement is correct? A, atoms of elements in group 7 react to form ions by losing one electron. B, iodine can displace bromine from its salts. C, potassium reacts more rapidly than lithium with water to form the hydroxide and hydrogen. D, the melting point of calcium is greater than that of potassium. So for option A, the group 7 atoms, they actually react by gaining one electron. So this is not correct. Iodine can displace bromine from its salt. So in terms of reactivity for the group 7 elements, the reactivity decreases down the group. So we have fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine. So in terms of reactivity, fluorine is the most reactive and iodine is the least reactive. For C, potassium reacts more rapidly than lithium with water to form the hydroxide and hydrogen. So in terms of reactivity, for group 1 elements, the reactivity increases down the group. So we can have lithium, sodium, and potassium. So lithium is the most reactive and potassium is the least reactive. D, the melting point of calcium is greater than that of potassium. So the melting points of group 1 elements decrease down the group. So the melting points, they decrease down the group. Answer here is not B, it's C. The correct answer is C. In terms of reactivity, so the reactivity, potassium reacts more rapidly than lithium. As we said in group 1, the reactivity increases down the group. So here potassium is more reactive than lithium. Question 24, it reads, the table gives the melting points, densities, and electrical conductivities of 4 elements. Which element is copper? So here, just need to know that copper has high melting points, boiling points, and it also has a high density, because it is a transitional element, and it also has a good electrical conductivity. So here the correct answer, where we have a high melting point and a high density and good electrical conductivity, is D. So the correct answer is D. Question 25. It reads, an atom of an element has 8 electrons only. Which statement about this element is correct? A, it forms an ion with 2 negative charges. B, it has a full outer shell of electrons. C, it is a metal. D, it is in group 8 of the periodic table. So since we're told that the element has 8 electrons, it means that the electronic configuration is 2, 6. Means say there are 2 electrons in the first shell and 6 electrons in the second shell. So this means that this element is in group 6 of the periodic table, since it has 6 electrons in its outermost shell. So here it forms an ion with 2 negative charges. So this is correct, because group 6 elements, they react by gaining 2 electrons. For example, oxygen, it forms the oxide ion, O2-. So it means it would have received 2 electrons to form 2 negative. So this is the correct option. B, it has full outer shell of electrons, so it does not have full electrons, a full outermost shell, because it has 6, so it is deficient of 2 electrons. It is a metal, so this is not a metal because it is in group 6, group 1 and 2, and some transient elements. That is where we find metals. And D, it is in group 8 of the periodic table, so it is in group 6, not 8. So the correct answer here is A. Question 26, it reads, the diagram shows a flow chart for the manufacture of fertilizer. So this is fractional distillation of air, we get gas W. Cracking of hydrocarbons, we get gas X. And gas W and gas X are combined under a pressure of Y and 450 degrees Celsius to form product Z, and another compound is added to form the fertilizer. And the question says, in which flow chart, in the flow chart, what are W, X, Y, and Z? So here what you need to just identify is to see that this has to do with the Haber process, which is the process which has a pressure of 200 atmospheres and 450 degrees Celsius. So gas W, this is nitrogen, which is obtained by the fractional distillation of air, and it is approximately 80% of air. And hydrogen, this one is obtained from, since here it is said cracking of hydrocarbons. So for example, the cracking of ethane, it results in the formation of ethene and hydrogen. So the cracking of ethane produces ethene and hydrogen. And when we combine the nitrogen and the hydrogen at a pressure of 200 atmospheres and 450 degrees, we get ammonia. So this is the upper process. So in the flow chart, what are W, X, Y, and Z? So W, that is nitrogen. So here the option where W is nitrogen is D, and X, that is hydrogen. So this is hydrogen. Pressure Y, so Y here, there's high or low. So it is high because 200 atmospheres is relatively a high temperature, a high pressure. And Z, if you combine nitrogen and hydrogen, we form ammonia, which is NH3. So the correct answer here is D. Question 27, it reads, which oxide can be reduced to the metal by roasting with powdered iron? A, calcium oxide. B, copper 2 oxide. C, magnesium oxide. D, zinc oxide. So this question, you need to know the reactivity series. You need to understand the reactivity series to know which metal is more reactive than the other. So this is the reactivity series where we have potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, carbon, zinc, iron, tin, lead, hydrogen, copper, silver, gold, and platinum. So this is increasing reactivity this side. So potassium is the most reactive, and reactivity decreases as we go to the right. So in order to memorize this, we can use a mnemonic. So we can just say, please stop calling me a careless zebra. Instead, try learning how copper saves gold, platinum. So please, for potassium, stop for sodium, calling for calcium, me for magnesium, A for aluminium, careless for carbon, zebra for zinc, instead for iron, try for tin, learning for lead, how for hydrogen, copper for copper, saves for silver, gold for gold, and then platinum. So here we want to see which oxide can be reduced to the metal by roasting with powdered iron. So we want to see of these elements, which of those where iron is more reactive than them. So iron is here in terms of the reactivity series. Calcium oxide, calcium is more reactive than iron. Copper 2 oxide, copper is less reactive than iron. Magnesium is more reactive than iron. Zinc is more reactive than iron. So it means iron can displace copper from its elements. So the correct answer is B. Question 28. Which element, if attached to iron, immersed in water, would prevent the iron from corroding? A, carbon. B, copper. C, magnesium. D, sulfur. So this is the concept of sacrificial protection, whereby we prevent iron from rusting by placing a more reactive element on it, or more reactive metal on it. Magnesium is more reactive than iron. So if we place magnesium on iron, magnesium is going to react first, protecting the iron. So that is the idea of sacrificial protection. And the magnesium has to be replaced before it is completely used up, so that it keeps on protecting the ion. So the correct answer here is C. Question 29. The final reaction in the extraction of metal X is represented by the following equation: X2O3 plus 3CO to form 2X plus 3CO2. What is X? So this equation, Fe2O3 plus 3CO plus 2Fe plus 3CO2, is the one which is represented by this equation with X. So X is ion. So X is ion. So that is C. Question 30. The question reads: hydrated sodium carbonate decomposes when heated in a Bunsen burner flame. Which equation shows this decomposition correctly? So what you need to know here is that the decomposition of sodium carbonate, it results in the formation of sodium carbonate and water. So what you need is the answer with sodium carbonate and water. A, there's sodium, carbon dioxide, oxygen, and water. B, that is sodium carbonate and water. So this is the correct answer. C, it says sodium hydrogen carbonate, sodium hydroxide, and water. D, sodium oxide plus carbon dioxide plus water. So the correct answer is B, where the products for the decomposition of sodium carbonate, hydrated sodium carbonate, result in the formation of sodium carbonate and water. Question 31, it reads: aluminium is extracted from aluminum oxide by electrolysis. So this is the apparatus for the extraction of aluminum oxide from aluminum oxide, which is also called bauxite, by electrolysis. So we have the carbon cathode, which is the negative terminal, and we have the carbon anode, which is the positive terminal, and we have the purified aluminum oxide dissolved in molten cryolite, and we have molten aluminum, and the waste gas is coming out. Which statement about this electrolysis is correct? A, aluminum ions gain electrons to form aluminum. B, aluminum cryolite is added to increase the melting point of the electrolyte. C, cryolite is added to react with impurities to form slag. D, the carbon cathode is to be replaced regularly as it reacts with oxygen. So on option D, it is not the cathode which is replaced, but rather it is the anode which is replaced, since at the anode, that is where oxygen gas is produced by the equation 2O2 minus, which is in molten state, to form oxygen gas plus 4 electrons. So at the anode, carbon anode, when oxygen has been produced, it starts to react with the carbon anode, forming carbon dioxide. So it is the anode which needs to be replaced. On C, cryolite is added to react with impurities. So cryolite does not react with impurities. What it does is to lower the melting point of aluminum oxide. On B, cryolite is added to increase the melting point of the electrolyte. So it is to lower, not to increase. And on A, aluminum ions gain electrons to form aluminum. So this is the correct answer, because at the cathode, that is where the aluminum ions gain electrons in a process called reduction to form aluminum, which is molten. Here it's cryolite lowers melting point. So the cryolite, it lowers the melting point of L2O3. So the correct answer here is A. A is the correct answer. Question 32. Which ion is present in both sewage and fertilizers and can cause eutrophication when it enters rivers? So the ions which cause eutrophication, that is the nitrate and the phosphate ions. So they cause eutrophication because they contain nitrogen and phosphorus, which are required by plants for growth. So the correct answer here is C. Question 33. It reads, the diagram shows an experiment to determine the percentage of oxygen in air. So we have a bell jar and a lit candle and water. Which diagram shows the correct level of water after the candle stops burning? So this is A, where the level of water is decreased inside the bell jar. Here it has remained the same. D, the level of water. C, the level of water is risen. D, it has risen to a further stage. It has risen more than on C. So the concept behind is that inside the bell jar there is a certain amount of oxygen. So as the candle burns, it is going to use up that oxygen, because for burning to occur we need oxygen gas. So the correct answer here is C. So it is going to rise by a smaller amount. So the correct answer is C. Question 34. How many of the structures show an unsaturated hydrocarbon molecule? So here we need to know what it means by the term unsaturated and hydrocarbon. So unsaturated, it means that it contains a double or a triple carbon-to-carbon bond. So unsaturated is either it is a double or a triple carbon-to-carbon bond. As long as it is not a single carbon-to-carbon bond, it is referred to as unsaturated. And a hydrocarbon, this means that the compound has carbon and hydrogen atoms only. That is what is known as a hydrocarbon. So here, this is not a hydrocarbon because it has chlorine. However, it is unsaturated. This one, it is both unsaturated and it is a hydrocarbon. So it is only carbon and hydrogen atoms only, and it has a carbon-to-carbon double bond. This one, it has oxygen, so it is not classified as hydrocarbon. This, it is a hydrocarbon because it has carbon-to-carbon. It only has carbon and hydrogen atoms, and it is saturated because it has carbon-to-carbon single bonds. So the correct answer here is A. We only have one compound which is unsaturated and which is also a hydrocarbon. Question 35, it reads, which statements are correct for alkenes but not for alkanes? So 1, they turn aqueous bromine from brown to colorless. 2, their general formula is CnH2n. 3, they burn in air to form carbon dioxide and water. So 1, this applies to only alkenes because the alkenes, they contain a carbon-to-carbon double bond, which is the one which reacts with aqueous bromine to change its color from brown to colorless, but it does not apply to alkanes. And the general formula of the alkenes homologous series is CnH2n, whereas that for alkanes, it's CnH2n plus 2. And this, it applies to both. Burning in air to form carbon dioxide and water. So the one which applies to, the statements which apply to alkenes only, it's 1 and 2. So the correct answer is B, which is 1 and 2 only. Question 35. Wine is an alcoholic drink that contains ethanol. If wine is left exposed to the air for too long, it can become acidic. This is because the ethanol is 1 to the acid 2. Which word and formula correctly complete gaps 1 and 2? So when ethanol is left in air for a certain time, for too long, it is oxidized, and the oxidation of ethanol results in the formation of ethanoic acid. So 1 is oxidized and this is ethanoic acid. So the correct answer here is A, where 1 is oxidized, and for gap 2, that is ethanoic acid, which is 1, 2 carbons and the COOH group. So the correct answer is A. Question 37. Polymer Z is the structure shown. So this is the polymer. So this is the polymer where we have the amide linkage, which is CO and then NH. This is the amide linkage. These 4 terms can be used to describe polymers. 1, addition polymer. 2, condensation polymer. 3, polyamide. 4, polyester. Which 2 terms can be applied to polymer Z? So addition polymerization is applied to monomers which have a carbon to carbon double bond. So this one, it is the one which results in an addition polymer. A condensation polymer is one in which it has been formed from 2 monomers, which when they combine together, they release a small water molecule. So this one, the amide linkage for it to be formed, it is from a carboxylic acid and an amine. So that is where a water molecule is lost. So this one, it applies to this polymer. And 3, a polyamide. So this one is a polyamide because it has many amide linkage. So poly means many, and then amide just to represent the amide linkage. So this also applies to this polymer. A polyester. So this one is not a polyester because a polyester should have the ester group or the ester linkage, which is carbon double bond oxygen and carbon single bond to oxygen, and then it continues on the other side. So 2 and 3 are the statements or the terms which can be used to describe polymer Z. So the correct option here is C. Question 38. The diagram shows the structure of polydichloroethene. So this is the structure of polydichloroethene, where we have hydrogens here, single bond, chlorine and chlorine. Which statement about this polymer is correct? The monomer is, which is dichloroethene, 1,1 dichloroethene, and this one, this is 1,2 dichloroethene. The polymer is formed by a condensation reaction. D, the polymer has a lower melting point than the monomer. So the correct answer here is A, because you can see here that the chlorines are on the same side and it is now a saturated molecule. So it results from these monomers, where if they combine, you can even represent it like this. So this one, it results in the formation. If you are just going to draw part of the polymer. It will look like this. So here the hydrogens. So here the hydrogens and chlorines here. So these are the chlorines which are coming here. Then the hydrogen and the chlorines here. So this is part of the molecule. So this N, it shows that this is the repeat unit. So the pattern repeats, which is like this. So for it to form, it is from the monomers which have the chlorines on the same side. So the correct answer is A. Question 39, it reads, how can the following reaction be described? So this reaction we have C8H18 to form C4H10 plus 2C2H4. So this is octane. This is octane, which is an alkane, to form butane, which is an alkane, and ethene, which is an alkene. So we can see that we're coming from a large chain alkane to form a smaller chain alkane and an alkene. So this kind of reaction where a big chain, a long chain alkane is broken down to form a small chain alkane and then ethene, and then alkene is referred to as cracking. So that is cracking. So question 39, the answer is B. Question 40, it reads, the structures of 4 hydrocarbons W, X, Y, and Z are shown. So this is W, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, X, 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, Y, 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, and a double bond here. Z, it is 1, 2, 3, a double bond. Which row is correct? So we have isomers of each other, decolorized bromine, and branch structures. So isomers, these are molecules which have the same molecular formula but different structural formula. And those which decolorize bromine, they have an alkene functional group, which is a carbon-to-carbon double bond. Branch structures are the one which are not continuously, the carbon chain is not continuous. So the isomers of each other here, they must have the same molecular formula but different structural formula. So here it is 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons and 3, 6, 9, 10 hydrogens. This one it has 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, 3, 6, and 8, 10. So these ones are isomers. This one it has 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, hydrogens is 3, 6, and 8. So this is not isomers to these ones. So the isomers are W and X. These are isomers to each other because they have the same molecular formula but different structural formula. Those that decolorize bromine should have a carbon-to-carbon double bond, so that is Y and Z. So Y and Z are the ones which decolorize bromine. So for NB, W and X, here for isomers of each other, decolorize bromine, Y and Z still the same. So we are going to differentiate them to select the correct answer by seeing the branch structures. So the branch structures, it's W and Y, because unlike X, you can see this is a continuous carbon chain, but here it bends here and another one continues like this. So this one is branched and also this one is branched. So W and Y are the ones which are branched. So W and Y. So the correct answer here is A. So ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our revision for Cambridge Paper 1, Chemistry Paper 1 for the May-June 2016 session. So don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Stay tuned for more.